Good morning and welcome. This is Hope at Dawn right here at Hope TV. This is where you look and live. It's Monday, the 22nd day of April 2024, and this is a beautiful Monday morning. We are thanking God for His goodness, His protection as well, hoping and praying that indeed you have been well as well in the Lord during the entire weekend. He has shielded you and has done great things for you, and you are expectant to see Him move this brand new week. It's a joy to host you this morning, and we are going straight to today's edition. And of course, being a Monday, it's all about your laws and the legal aspects of everything in as far as law logs are concerned. And without much ado, allow me to welcome our guest in studio. Not a first time visitor, not a visitor actually. He's been here a number of times, and we thank him because of always finding time to come and share his wisdom with us. And without it wasting time, allow me to welcome our lawyer friend, Perry. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
And it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
After a while.
After a while.
But you're well?
I'm very well. How about yourself?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yes.
Blessed of the Lord as well.
Amen.
Awesome. For the sake of maybe someone who is tuning in for the very first time, yes, you're not a visitor, but just introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. So my name is Perry.
Yes.
As you've rightly put it, I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya.
Yes.
And we practice a variety of laws, both civil and criminal. And now that today we are talking about children and the law, children and the law are one of the areas that we practice a lot.
All right.
Yes.
Awesome. You're the right person then to have,
Thank you.
even as we are conversing about children's rights in Kenya. And I think the best place to start is the definition of a child, because it may vary in different, you call them jurisdictions. So
Exactly. Exactly.
So I'm trying to learn. Yeah. So different jurisdictions have different definitions. So for the context of Kenya, let's define a child in the Kenyan context.
Exactly. So the Kenyan law under the Children's Act defines a child as an individual who is below the age of 18 years old.
Yes.
So so long as an individual is below the age of 18, then before the eyes of the law, they are going to be considered as children.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so long as they are below the ages of 18,
exactly,
they're defined as children.
As children. So that this is very interesting, because I think you'll find that post 2010, I've seen quite a number of people being enrolled in campus, yet they're still below the age of 18.
Yes.
So maybe they cleared high school 16, 17 years, depending on when they started. And they are thrown into the world while they're still defined as children. Yes.
Awesome. Now that we have defined who a child is, let's look at some of the children's rights, especially in Kenya. Which are some of these rights that children enjoy or should be enjoying?
Yeah. That's very, very basic. Actually, that has been provided for in the Constitution and the Children's Act.
Yes.
And that is the basic rights are the right to food, shelter, clothing, and parental love and protection.
Yes.
And protection then goes and defines what protection is. That can be anonymity, protection from forced labor, protection from sexual exploitation. So I think what the viewers can take home is just know that the children have the right to food, shelter, clothing, and parental and societal protection.
Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned parental love, and that has awakened me, because how do we then? How are we able to define? Different people have different ways of showing, love.
Love.
Yeah. So how do we define this parental love?
Definitely. So according to the law, love is you discharging your the very basic obligations. That is ensuring that your kid has shelter, your kid has food, your kid has clothing. Because, we live in we are evolving. So you may find that either parents may not be staying together for one reason or the other. But at the end of the day, the best interest, actually the Act says that in everything, that you do for the child,
Yeah.
or before any consideration is made, we
Yeah.
have to look at the best interest of this child.
child.
Yes, so the best, so long as you as an adult, and that's why we are called adults,
Yes.
so long as you can, after your assessment, know that what you're doing is in the best interest of this child,
Yes.
then that is parental love that
Yeah.
you have done, because you cannot do all these things without love.
Yes.
Yes, providing for the kid,
Yeah.
making sure that they go to a good school, making sure that they have food on the table. So it's something that can be, as you've rightly put it, it can be varied,
Yeah.
but it has the bare minimums. Yes.
I think Wakili, for clarity purposes, orphans, how are they protected by these children's rights? And especially when we come now to the parental love aspect of the parental love, aspect of provision, you know, shelter, clothing, food, education. When it comes now to the orphans, are they exempted? Is there another maybe act law that protects the orphans, or are they still covered under the current laws governing, or rather protecting children?
Yeah, that's a good question. So they are still protected under these current laws, the Children's Act.
Yeah.
And I think I have to further clarify that the responsibility of taking care of our children does not really end with the parent, but it's also a societal obligation. That's why you'll find that the government has, in its wisdom, decided to say that there's a free basic education, and that is one of the roles that they play.
Yeah.
The children officers who are being paid from the consolidated fund by through the exchequer, those officers are there to oversee the rights and the rights of the children who are not privileged to have parents for one reason or the other. And even international organizations, we have NGOs that have come in, even the churches, I know for a fact, even CITAM sponsors the children who are orphans. So it's, when you look at the children, you have to look at it as a global issue. You say that regardless, because you know these children are not supposed to be discriminated. So whether a child has a parent or not, they are equal before the eyes of the law. So it's incumbent upon us, and I think that is why the president recently, I think a month or two, made a remark and said, and even the first lady, if we can, open your houses. If you were not privileged, or if you know you have enough resources to take care of kids who don't have, who are not privileged, then open up your houses. Let us take up these children. And that will be a way of ensuring that we are meeting our obligations as provided for by the law. So these children are all protected by the same law. And it's our responsibility.
It is our responsibility to take care of each and every child who is out there. Let's talk to the parents who are out there, and they are wondering, but I'm a parent, loving and all. How then can a parent deprive a child or children their rights? How? Are there examples?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking for for examples of
Definitely. So as a parent, if you know that you're not meeting we normally call them the bare minimums, as you've said. You're not providing for food, shelter, and clothing for your child, then you should know that automatically you are breaching the law, and you can be sued actually. Because I'll give you an example. Assuming I have a kid, and instead of me taking this child to school when schools open, I instead decide to say, let the kid stay at home, let him or her go to work in some farm so that we get money. When I get the money, I just drink all the money. So if the government, because as we remember, we defined and said that even the government has a responsibility, and they always come house to house. They move house to house to ensure that kids are going to school. And I will be asked, for example, why haven't you taken your kid to school?
Yeah.
And you can see in Kenya, basic education is free. So I have no excuse. So if you don't meet your bare minimum, because we are adults, they are children.
Yeah.
So it's incumbent upon us to push them, we tell them what to do and what not to do. And remember, we said ignorance of the law is that's not
no
a defense. Yeah, so you should know that your kid needs to dress,
Yeah.
your kid needs to go to school, your kid needs adequate shelter,
Yeah.
and your kid needs medication at the very least
Yeah.
in case of anything. Yeah, so that.
I remember when the schools closed, especially, actually it was the first few days after schools closed. I think there was an advocate, I read this in the dailies, who was planning or had moved to court seeking clarity. And the clarity that the lawyer was seeking was that he wanted a separation whereby there would be a differentiation of chores and adult work. So I don't know where we draw the line, so that for him, his argument was that he doesn't want the children to be compelled to do what he termed as adult work. How does that work, and how can he be able to navigate on the same?
Definitely. I think that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And as we were having our off-the-camera discussion, I think I said it's a relative definition.
Yeah.
And I'm really waiting to see what the courts will say at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because from where I sit, I think so in as long as you're not using the kids for value, you're not telling your kid to go work for someone else for value, for them to get, for you, or even them to get money at the end of the day, that cannot be defined as child labor. But if you you take an example of a household setup. For me, I can define household chores as vacuuming the carpet, whereas someone else can define household chores as taking the cattle out for grazing, milking the cattle, ensuring that the land is still. So we cannot say that that is forced labor, because at the end of the day, remember, we have to raise these kids in a holistic way. So that the education system has its own obligations to discharge, whereas the parents and the community at large have their own obligations. So that we can only train these kids through examples. Because eventually, once they hit 18, who will be vacuuming their carpet? Who will be showing them how to till the land? So this is part of the learning process. And I'll insist, so long as there is no money, we are not paying the kids, we are not taking them out to work for our benefit, then I don't see any harm being meted upon them. Yes.
All right. And Wakil, I know you have maybe interacted with different scenarios. What are some of in Kenya, what are some of the most violated children's rights? And what are the punishments?
Definitely. I think the biggest monster that we are currently battling with is sexual exploitation of these children. And that has, unfortunately, I'll have to say that it is so unfortunate, but that has been on the rise. Our kids, the society, let me put it, because remember, we have a responsibility as a society. So you'll find that the society is not taking the responsibility that it ought to have seriously. So that you'll find that for whatever reason, we have seen an increase of molestation, which has gone high, which is very, very unfortunate, noting that the development of this child or his future or her future will be carved in accordance to how with the experiences that he or she had when they were growing up. So I think we need to wake up as a society. We need to look at these children as children, and the parents also need to take their responsibility seriously. I know we are busy, we have to make money, but at the end of the day, the responsibility of protecting this child lies with us. So that if we just, for argument's sake, you leave a small kid who is maybe 10 years, 7 years old at home.
Yeah.
You're saying that you're going to look for the bread and butter, and you're not aware of the predator who is lurking over there.
Yeah.
Someone is just waiting for that opportunity. They know that there's nothing, and then that is one of the unfortunate bit of the capitalist society, because we have to eat at the end of the day. So you're left with that decision. Do I leave this kid alone? Do I take them to someone else?
Yeah.
So a majority of them, you leave the kids alone, go in the morning, come back at night. You leave your kids with internet, with phones and laptops and all, without ensuring that they are well guarded, so that online predators are many. We have seen the complaints. Strangers, you'll wonder, for example, how someone can move from one county to the other to molest a child who they have never met. You see, so I think if we take our role as parents seriously, then we will at least see the reduction of these cases. Because I'd say education, the government has tried. As we've said, it's free now. You can go to our public hospitals for free. You can access a children's officer for free. But now the aspect of protection, that is why we have the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Let's talk about you have talked about Children's Welfare Office, the importance of those offices and those officers in ensuring that the children's rights are protected in the country. Would you talk about that office and the importance of that office?
Definitely. The offices were created for the sole purpose of ensuring that the Children's Act is properly enforced, and they are the voices of these vulnerable. Let me talk about the vulnerable, the orphans that you're talking about, the street children, the what. They speak on behalf of those children, you see. So it's, for example, if you discover that there is any violation, and that is where, again, the society comes in, you may ask yourself, what do I do if I discover that maybe there is an orphan, there's a child who is an orphan and they need some sort of assistance? It is that office. You go to the children's office, you make a report, and a screening will be done by the welfare, and the child will actually be taken up, put up in one of the placement homes as processing is being done, so that one of the aspects is ensuring that all the kids get the basic rights that we mentioned, the food, shelter, and clothing, and then ensuring that the kids are protected. So if you find that your kid has, or another child has been violated in one way or the other, then you can go to these welfare societies. And I have seen that they have done a good thing by trying as much as possible to devolve, so that you go to some of these police stations, a majority of the police stations in Kenya, you will not fail to get a children's section where there is a police and a children's officer, so that their training is specifically tailor-made to handle issues relating to children. Yes. And finally, I think another role that the welfare plays is guidance, so that if you want to adopt a child and you're not sure how to start or where to go, you can approach the office. If not an advocate's office, you can approach the Children's Society. They'll give you a guidance as to how the adoption process is done in Kenya. Yes.
As you are speaking, I've thought of children who find themselves on the wrong side of the law. How, in as much as punishment is meted out against them and on them, how do we still protect their rights?
Definitely. Remember I said when some of their rights that they have, I never mentioned them, some of them, but because there are many. One of them is anonymity, the right to be anonymous.
Yeah.
So if a kid, remember we said that once you're below 18, there is some sort of, I won't call it leniency, but the law handles you in a different way. Yeah, so those kids, if you, for one reason or the other, commit a crime, the children's court has been trained to handle those cases in a professional way by ensuring that those kids are protected anonymously. And if they have no access to a lawyer, because some of these cases need you to have presence of a counsel, they will try as much as possible to ensure that a lawyer, a pro bono lawyer, or whoever is appointed to allocated to you, so that your rights are protected, because you're still a child. And the basic principle of treating the kids who commit crimes is to ensure that they undergo rehabilitation. It is not a punishment, but a rehabilitation exercise, so that they are telling you, we want to prepare you for the world out there, which is not going to be lenient. So if you commit a crime, we will try as much as possible to mold you and then eventually release you, so that we see whether you have learned your lesson. Yes.
Right. Let's talk about empowering these children to know their rights. Of course, we are having a woke generation, if you can define them as such. And the things we thought were a privilege yesteryears, they are now rights. Or some things as parents we think, but I think it's a privilege. It's actually a right. So how do we empower? How do we empower both? We empower the parents to know what they're supposed to do as parents, in as far as the rights of the children are concerned, and empowering our children to also know their rights.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think for the children, the best way of empowering our children and making them know, because for them, they may have nobody to tell them this, it is to embed these rights that we are talking about into the curriculum. We try as much as possible. Maybe that is something that can be thought out by the educators, but if it can be embedded into our curriculum, so that as the kids start understanding, right from standard 1 up to, say, Form 4, they now graduate to the real world. It is going to be of benefit if we constantly tell them, because they don't know about these things. The campaigns may not be enough. We may run ads, but the kids may be out there playing. They may not see the ads. They may not understand the ads. But if we take this responsibility and give them to the teachers, and tell the teachers to explain to these children in a language that they understand of their rights and responsibilities, their rights and their responsibilities, actually, we would have won almost 90% of this battle. So that these children need to grow in that culture. And I know some of these first world countries like China, Japan, that is what they do. They make it part of the curriculum, talk about it, let it stick, so that every day when you go to school, as you graduate, you know you're going to learn something about the law, in as far as the Children's Act is concerned, in a very basic way. In a very basic way. And then for the adults, obviously, it is desensitization, because we have the capability of understanding. And remember, I said ignorance is also not a defense. So when these campaigns are being done, the ads, maybe the road shows, and maybe through the churches, it is our responsibility as adults to be keen, listen, ask questions if you're not clear, if you need to get any clarification, so that in the event that you get yourself in a situation that needs your intervention, then you will know the right course of action to take.
And let's talk about how a child can be able to report an abuse of their rights. What's the process like?
Definitely. So if it's a child and you feel that you want to talk about something that has happened,
Yeah.
you report an abuse, you talk to an adult, someone who is trusted. And if you see that no action has been taken,
Yeah.
then the child, depending on their age and level of understanding, they can just walk in to a police station. Remember, I said now
Yeah.
the police, most of these police stations have children's sections
Yes.
embedded into them.
Yes.
So you can just walk into a police station, report an abuse. They will handle you in the most professional way.
Yeah.
They will ensure that they get to the bottom of your complaint, and a resolution will be found depending on the kind of complaint that you have, because in those police stations, as you've said,
Yeah.
they are children officers
Yeah.
who are going to handle you. If it means taking you out for a couple of months, maybe living in a different place, then so be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are, Wakili, even as we are coming to a close, what are some of the hindrances in Kenya in as far as ensuring the children's rights are well protected?
For me, the biggest hindrance that I've noticed is the cultural hindrance that is in conflict with the Children's Act. So I'll give you an example. So you'll find in some of these communities in Kenya, children are married off from as early as 10 years, 11 years, 12 years. And if you go to those societies, they will tell you that it is our culture for us to marry off our daughters when they attain maybe a certain age, or what, or depending on the circumstances. So I'll say it's a cultural thing. And then economically, remember we said that we are in a capitalist society. So you'll find that due to the poverty levels that maybe are currently prevailing, kids may be exploited in terms of forced labor, maybe sexual exploitation for money. We've seen these cases, we've seen convictions being done. So I think the biggest hindrances for these are economic, the economic aspect of the city or the country, and or the region, and the cultural aspect of maybe some of these communities, because they are not evolving. And you see, our constitution is very clear that yes, in as much as we may agree with your customs, they must not be inconsistent with the provisions of the constitution and the other laws. So that is one thing that we need to really focus on.
Right.
Yes.
And finally, can a child report cases of abuse and any other thing that they have gone through years later? And maybe what's the legal process?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually possible for you to do that, because obviously, remember we said these kids are kids, and they may not know the recourse at that particular stage. Maybe they were afraid, they were threatened, but later on they got the courage and went. So you can always make a report, but now the biggest challenge will be proving. So that, for example, say if it's a sexual exploitation case, the evidence will already be will be lost many years from now. So we have to. It's possible for you to report. You can have evidence in form of maybe text, maybe written, maybe you have corroborative evidence from someone else, but we always encourage people to report these cases as soon as possible, because there is always a chain of command, so that if it's a sexual exploitation case, you have to go immediately, get a P3, go to the hospital, conduct a medical examination, swabs are done, tests are done, reports are generated, and those reports are then going to be used in court. So it's okay, but now proving will be the biggest thing. Yes.
Right. And when it comes to the children's cases, which division of the court hears such cases?
If it's criminal, if it's a criminal complaint, it's just the normal chief magistrate's court.
Okay.
They handle such issues because it's a complaint. It's the republic then complaining against an individual. So, but if it's a different in the civil division, then there is a children's court that has been created to specifically hear those cases and issue determinations. And I think we need to commend the judiciary actually in a way, because they waived the fees so that if you have any complaint, you want to file a case, whether maintenance, whether whatever you want to file in the children's court, you can do that for free, so that we want to ensure that these kids get the access to justice in the most efficient way and the cheapest way.
All right.
Yes.
What would be your closing remarks, even as you tell us how we can get in touch with you?
I think there is a thin line between love and spoiling. Yeah, so that you may want to access the internet, yes, but there are certain contents that you cannot access.
Yes.
And a majority of these issues of kids or children, let's call them children, engaging in these prohibited acts, normally happen through the internet. So if you let your kid do whatever they want, watch whatever they want, they will just emulate that. And once you leave, why not? And you gave them the right to do so. So let us take our responsibility seriously as parents, because these are our future generations. When we reach 70, 80 years old and we have no strength, we will be relying on these children to run the country and society on our behalf. So we have to be very careful. Also the Gen Z, we call them Gen Zs. Gen Zs and the ones who are coming after. Let us be steadfast. Let us have a vision. Let us have a focus as to the morality, because the morality of a society mirrors the development. Yes.
Right. How can we get in touch with you?
Definitely. My contacts will be 0710 162 or in the alternative, you can just shoot an email. That is Perry Hennessy, PERRYHENNESY @gmail.com, and we will talk to you.
All right.
Yes.
Asante sana wakili.
Thank you so
Always
much.
a pleasure having these conversations with you, enlightening us and letting us know what's happening in the legal world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for always finding time.
Thank you very much.
Asante
Pleasure.
sana. Yep, that was Advocate Perry talking to us, and today we were discussing about children's rights in Kenya. And I know you know a thing or two now, and what you need to do, what you ought to be doing every day in as far as protecting your children, your child is concerned. As the Wakili has indicated, let us take responsibility as parents. Let us not delegate our responsibilities to any other person or any other institution. This is a God-given responsibility, and as such, we ought to be doing what God has called us to do as fathers and also as mothers. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Thank you for your time. Thank you for engaging with us across all our social media platforms. Anyone you think should be listening to this content, make sure you're sharing with them today's conversation, and I know it will be a blessing to them as well. This is to wish you a blessed day ahead on behalf of the entire team, from the camera crew to the audio guys to our director Yuna, my co-host amazing Beatrice. We are wishing you a blessed and a fruitful day ahead. God willing, we'll be doing this again same time, same place tomorrow, and being a Tuesday, it is one day at a time as we testify the blessings and the doings of the Lord. From me, George Gishoro, it's bye-bye for now.